Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of Reliance Talk. This is going to be the last episode for a few weeks at least. As I told you before I started this series, I wanted to try it out for a little while and see how it does. I don't know how well it's being received. I know that the view numbers are not very great, but hopefully it's helping some people. But I'm not going to know that unless you let me know. If you found these 4 episodes helpful in any way, please let me know. There's been 300 to 400 people watch each episode, but only less than 50 people are actually giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down or leaving a comment. So those things matter. I really need you guys to leave a thumbs up if you like this and want to see it stick around. All right. This episode is all about the progression that we're all on a journey to self-reliance. Now, if you want to skip this philosophical discussion and kind of go more to the concrete suggestions that I have for you, I'll put a number on the screen here for you to jump to. But I think it's important to talk about some of the philosophy here to set a groundwork for what we're going to talk about. Anyway, it's really not possible to be 100% self-reliant. You can't rely on yourself for everything in your life. Now, whether that's from a religious perspective where we rely upon God, or whether that's from a physical standpoint where we 100% rely on ourselves for our food and water and shelter and clothing and all those things, it's really not possible to achieve 100% self-reliance, or you would basically be in complete isolation with no products made by other human beings, no companionship from other human beings, no influence from other people. That's just not possible. And even if it is possible, that's not a good goal to have, and that life would suck. This is a journey by degrees. We're each of us gaining a little bit in self-reliance over time. And so, but don't get frustrated or don't get in your mind that a 100% self-reliant point is possible and is the goal. We're just trying to move the ball forward. I've been thinking about this subject for the video for a while, but this comment from one of my viewers a while back kind of got me thinking along these lines. And basically, the red highlighted part is the part that kind of caught my eye. This was in response to a video about solar, and his comment is right. There are things that are worth it to incrementally move us down this self-reliance journey. So we can buy tools like he was talking about with solar, or resources or other things that can help us move towards self-reliance. We can also gain knowledge as a reference throughout our life that we can build wisdom upon. We can gain skills and abilities by repetition, practice, and experience. And we can build a network of people around us that care about us, that help us, and that help foster that self-reliant way of life. And that network, I think, might be better termed human capital. So we're accumulating human capital on our journey. Another thing I wanted to point out philosophically here is don't pigeonhole yourself into thinking that self-reliance is just the obvious meaning of the word, right? So relying on yourself. Don't just think of it that way, because there's more of it. There's more to it than that. And it's not just you against the world. There are shades of gray here. There are the nuances here. So some of self-reliance is about control and freedom and choices. It's about being able to have more options and more things that you can do in a given scenario. We want more information. We want more power. Those things help to build confidence in us, which drives away fear, which leads to better decision making, which leads to better quality of life, all of those things. So even if you're not comfortable doing something yourself, or you've proven in the past that you're not any good at it, you can still gain some self-confidence in that area, and I'm going to help you kind of show you how you can do that. But let me first explain, before I explain all that, let me start off with a question. Is it better to know absolutely nothing about plumbing, not know any plumbers, and to basically, if a plumbing emergency arose, to have to take a shot in the dark at the first plumbing contractor that you found on Google? Or is it better to have at least a basic understanding of how plumbing works, what the plumbing in your house conceptually, how it operates, what it looks like, and to at least know maybe one or two plumbers that come recommended by friends and family and neighbors and so forth? Obviously, the second would be the preferable scenario. And so what my point to you today is to think about self-reliance a little bit more in those terms. Even if you have no interest in learning about, if you have no interest in becoming a plumber or doing DIY plumbing in your home, you can move the ball incrementally forward with self-reliance in plumbing by equipping yourself with a little bit of basic knowledge and some resources, some human capital that you can go to. Another example, even if you have no interest at all in auto repair or becoming a mechanic or DIY auto repair, you can still take a few hours and educate yourself on, for example, the charging system in a car. What are the main components? How do they operate together? What are some basic scenarios where one might fail or something bad might happen? And then so that in one day when your car doesn't start, you at least have some information on what some of the possible issues might be and what to look for. And you've got some baseline information that you can then take to a mechanic, hopefully one that you have a relationship with, but you can take that information to a mechanic, let them know what the situation looks like, and hopefully maybe even be able to prevent yourself from being taken advantage of, for being charged for extra repairs. For example, you should know what a car battery costs. What would it cost you to go get one from AutoZone? And if it's $125 for your car and the mechanic is trying to charge you $200, you can say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? So if you have some basic level of information, even if you don't care about cars, you don't want to know anything about cars, you can at least know a little bit to help you be more in control of the situation. So continuing on the car analogy, car dealerships are famous for this. Their service departments make them more money than the actual sales of the car does. So we've all probably gone to a dealership. If you have a new car under warranty or something, you've taken it in for a warranty repair maybe, or you've gone to it on a used car, whatever the case may be. You've probably been presented with the air filter trick, where they come and show you a very dirty air filter and say, hey, your air filter needs to be changed. We'll do it for $50. Except that's like a $15 part, $20 part on Amazon, and anyone without any tools can take care of that themselves. So even if you don't want to do it yourself, you still have some information to be able to avoid being completely helpless in a scenario like that, and giving yourself a little bit more confidence, a little bit more control. Okay, so philosophical discussion over. Let's move on to some helpful things for you guys to think about. And hopefully, again, I'm not trying to teach you anything. I'm just trying to bring up ideas to try to get you moving in the right direction for yourself. So even if you think that, like myself, that you're pretty handy, that you're pretty self-reliant, that you've got some food storage, you've got this taken care of, you've got solar, whatever. Even if you think you're pretty far down that road, there are still going to be some things that you either haven't thought of, have ignored, have overlooked, or whatever. So I'm going to go through a few of those together with you here and hopefully help you identify some areas where you can improve. Number one, financial self-reliance. The end goal here, for me at least, but I would propose it should be for everybody, would be get completely out of debt and stay there. Don't use credit cards. Don't finance cars. Don't pay off your mortgage on your house as soon as you can. That's going to get you to a closer point to where you have no monthly liabilities. Obviously, there will still be, utilities and some other things depending on your life situation. But the further, again, this is shades of gray, the further you can get toward that self-reliant goal to the end is preferable. Number two, consumption patterns. This is a problem for me because I drink a lot of Diet Coke. But are there goods or services or resources that you consume heavily or rely upon heavily that could cause you a big crisis if they were to be not available for a certain period of time? If there's a supply chain issue, if the grid goes down, if the crap hits the fan, or if whatever happens and you no longer have access to that thing that you that you consume a lot of, what is the backup plan? Number three, your self-reliance network. Again, this is that human capital thing that we talked about in the philosophical discussion. But for those who are just tuning in to the latter half of the video here, surround yourself with people that know things, people that can teach you things, subject matter experts, like-minded people who are also trying to be self-reliant, who can help you in a pinch. Also, if you have kids, maybe these are some people that can help you with childcare to enable you to, give you an hour or two a week that without the kids where you can go work on your garden or whatever the case may be. Surround yourself with human people that can help you. Number four, food generation. This is one of those, again, I don't know anybody practically that can possibly 100% rely upon themselves for all of their food generation. And I suspect a lot of you are like me, where it's really close to zero. So, what percentage of your food do you grow or harvest on your own? Think about that. If it's close to zero like me, what would you have to do to get that to 1%, for example? And then make a goal of how you could possibly get there. Even if it's just, let's say you live in an apartment and I can't have a garden, right? Well, you could still have those things, they're called like aero gardens, but they're indoor, like aquaponic or hydroponic, or little air gardens that you can have to just grow, something small, but they grow herbs or small plants in them. Even just something like that, it moves you incrementally forward and gives you something, whereas you had nothing before. Another one that a lot of people don't think of, recreation and entertainment. If you've ever seen the show called Alone, where they send a bunch of contestants out into the bush and they have to rely on a few tools or whatever they brought with them to survive as long as they can, and the last person standing wins. Well, most of the people tap out for mental reasons. They couldn't keep themselves going. They couldn't keep themselves motivated, but they also got bored. Their mental health suffered. So what can you do if you had to shelter in place for a month, let's say, because something happened, without internet? What would you have on hand to keep yourself occupied, to keep yourself entertained, to keep your mind sharp, so to speak, and your mental health up? Another one is employment. If you were to get fired tomorrow, are you prepared to move on? Are you at least mentally prepared? Do you have an updated resume ready? Have you talked to some former coworkers and bosses and keeping that network alive? Have you talked to a recruiter in the last year? Do you have some things that you can go to quickly in that event where you can get back on your feet quicker? So think about employment in that respect. Another one is education. Did your education stop when you graduated high school or college? For a lot of the kind of the ignorant masses, that's the case, right? Most people aren't really lifelong learners, right? And that's just kind of how we operate. So you kind of sometimes have to give yourself a push. That might require you to sign up for an online course where you have some responsibility to turn in assignments, to kind of force you, if you don't have the discipline to do it on your own, maybe you need that structure to help you get over the hump and learn a new topic. But or maybe you can just get one of those whatever for dummies books and read that. Again, maybe there's woodworking or some subject that you want to learn a little bit of. Maybe you don't want to adopt that as a hobby or a skill that you're going to do a lot, but maybe you want to have a baseline understanding of it. That's a great way to start. Another subject is time management, and this is more of prioritization. So are we wasting time? Is there time that we could carve out to take us a little bit further down that self-reliant journey? So obviously we all have the same 24 hours in the day. So if you or someone you know, someone in your immediate family, whatever, if they say, well, I just don't have time to read a book, I don't have time to learn a new skill, I don't have time to whatever, that's a priority call on their part. They're saying that whatever that X is not a high enough priority for me to allocate time to that. And so I would challenge them to just reprioritize a little bit and find 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes a week, whatever it is. Again, we're just trying to take baby steps. So find 10 minutes of meaningful time that you can learn a new skill, or you can try something new, learn about self-reliance, watch a YouTube video, whatever it is, but put some time and investment into that. Another one, and then I guess the final one that I'm going to talk about today, is security. Now, you go out and watch YouTube videos, 99% of them are going to talk about guns, and you know it's typically going to be some former Army guy or whatever telling you about situational security, whatever. Okay, great. Tactics, strategy, all that. That's phenomenal. But for the rest of us who aren't former military or aren't really going to take things that far, there are still some things that you can think about to increase your security, even if you don't own a gun, even if you have no intention of fighting in a grid down scenario, any of that kind of stuff. So it goes beyond guns and force. What I mean by that, let me give you an example. If the grid were to go down and everything was dead quiet because nothing was operating, there's no power, and you needed to run your generator, is there a way that you could quiet that down so that it wasn't as obvious? I ran into this personally during the outage, the winter outages here in Texas a few years ago. I was running my generator around the clock, and it is really loud when the world is completely silent. And so I didn't have any problems with anyone coming over or anything like that. But if it were, instead of a 1 or 2 day event, if it were a 1 month event and there's people out there starving and freezing to death, now you've got a kind of a security situation going. So you may want to figure out a way to quiet that thing down to stay under the radar. And that's just as important as having force, to having a gun or whatever, is staying under the radar, having retreats, having fallback plans, whatever the case may be. There are ways to think about security that don't involve guns. Now, there are lots of other topics that we could discuss. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, but those are just the ones that I thought of that maybe that would hopefully spark some ideas for you. I encourage everyone to think about self-reliance a little bit differently from this point forward. Take baby steps onward and upward, and just try to be a little bit more self-reliant than you were before. And I challenge everyone to think of one subject. Just if you did one thing from this video, take one subject maybe that you're a little weak in, and go from 0% to 1% this week. That's the challenge. Thanks for watching, guys.